Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here to the Homestead Miami Speedway as it plays host to the 13th race of the 7th season of the Great Lake Truck Series presented by Patti Engineering. Here today, getting ready for the running of the South Beach 200 playoff race number 3, coming off of the Memorial Day off week as the drivers get themselves ready to continue on the playoffs, in which by the end of these 7 playoff races, we're going to be crowning ourselves a champion. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Matthew Rodriguez. And Matt, bit of an update going on here this past week on iRacing. We're expecting it might play a bit of a part into tonight's mile-and-a-half race, but there's a lot of drivers that 2 races in, and they are just way behind the 8 ball right now. They need a good run here tonight to get things turned around.
Yeah, I think we could easily pick off about a few people who definitely could have had a lot better 2 weeks. But hey, one of those guys already getting off to a great start. Jackson Sims taking pole. Would you believe it? Last week, or sorry, not last week, before the break, Eric Kepps got his very first pole. This is Jackson Sims' very first pole.
Jackson Sims, 10th of the 10 playoff drivers coming into this race, did not get the run he was looking for at Milwaukee, was caught up in an early incident at Talladega. Maybe this is the point where the 6 truck will be able to get his luck turned around and get himself back into that championship battle. Despite the troubles that he's had coming into this race, he's only 51 points back. Now that may seem like a lot, but consider the fact too that he's got, 5 more races here in the playoffs. So, if he's able to pick up a victory here after getting the pole, it could be an entirely different outlook for this team coming down the home stretch.
Well, I know I've really been pushing that whole, hey, listen, do a conservative approach to starting the playoffs. Make sure that you have some time to build up some points. Right now, Jackson Sims doesn't really have that, luxury. He needs to go swing for the fences. He's really got himself in a bad situation at Milwaukee. He got himself in a bad situation at Talladega. He needs to make something happen. It's kind of a do or die point. It's not what you wanted to get to at Homestead, but hey, some people work better under pressure.
Another driver we'll have to keep an eye on, Shane Nicewanger, suffered that near dead last finish at Talladega, dropped all the way down to 9th in the playoff standings. That was after having a really good start to the year in the opener of the playoffs. So we'll see what he's able to do rolling off the outside of row number 7. But here we go, 134 laps here at Homestead Miami Speedway. It's Jackson Sims and Ashton Lawson, a couple of playoff drivers that are going to lead us down into turn number 1.
And we heard a lot about it in pre-race. No, Most loses it.
Man!
We heard a little bit about it. We heard a little bit about it in pre-race, where these cars are fine. They can push on the straightaways without even getting loose, but the moment you get in that corner, if you lay the bumper to them, it just loses the back end.
That was a tremendous save as we're 3 wide. Ashton Lawson continuing to fall back.
Oh, a little bit.
Henderson and Tyrone Baker took him 3 wide. They're still 3 wide again. It's Austin Moore up on the outside of Will Barbichelata. I believe that is a 51. Yes, Trent Curtis is on the inside of that. About 3 wide, a little bit further up again. That's Ashton Lawson trying to work his way back to the front.
And you may be considering this a little bit weird, but Homestead Miami's almost like a little bit of a super speedway for these trucks because it lets them get a little bit more strung out, lets them kind of run the gearing a little bit, but as the laps go on, you notice these tires start to fade. Now you're going to see some guys migrating on the top part of the track. They're going to try to do it sideways on the wall. If you're run off the corner, will that help the team to reflection?
A couple of drivers in practice utilizing right up against the wall. Larson in it. If Zach Henry was one driver that I noticed was doing it, and just moments ago here in his first couple of laps saw Austin Moore and Will Barbichelata trying that extreme outside line. But going back to that first turn, first lap, tremendous credit not only to Ashton Lawson of being able to keep that thing from spinning out, but the 12 of Zach Henry was the truck behind him, and he having the wherewithal to slow it down, not run over Ashton Lawson, and maybe collect up a bunch of drivers in the early going. That was a great job by everybody in the vicinity.
That's one of the moves that keep you in this race for the playoffs when you don't want to get taken out of that. Yeah, you may have lost a bunch of positions, but hey, you live to fight another day.
Elliot Henderson, he was up on the top side, now jumps down to the bottom on pass there for the 5th position. You'll see over on the left side of your screen, drivers highlighted in blue on the ticker are your playoff drivers. Sims, the pole sitter, in the second spot. Just behind him, Jared Darling in the fourth. That's another driver that we had highlighted coming into tonight. Needs a good run. He got a decent outing at Talladega, but he had a bad run the week before at Milwaukee, so they kind of canceled each other out. He is 8th of the 10 playoff drivers coming into this race.
It's just a little bit of those things where, hey, it's one step forward, one step back. That's kind of what I'm seeing here is you don't have to be perfect, but you need to minimize mistakes. That's what I'm really focusing on here is, yes, Talladega is Talladega. It's unpredictable, but we really need to minimize mistakes at Homestead and kind of move that good momentum going forward because North Wilkes is going to be a different night.
That's number 25 of Tyrell Baker doing exactly what you were talking about, using that side force up against the outside wall. He's making it work. About 2 laps ago, he was in 6th. He's now going to go to the outside of Zach Henry. That's for 3rd. And Mike in for 2nd. Yep, into the wall. Saw the sparks flaring off the right rear, and that's going to lose him momentum and lose him positions. It's a fine line if you're going to run right up there against that safer barrier.
Now, he didn't damage the car. He did it perfectly. He just set him against the fence and ran it. The big problem with doing that is, yes, it is extremely fast, but you're really churning and putting a lot of wear on that right front tire, and you're going to end up starting to plow into the corner. What you want to do is you're going to end up sliding the back of the car around, putting that wear on that right rear, but it's extremely hard to do with a truck like this. It's really mostly for the car.
Jump is pulled away by about a second over Jared Darling. Zach Henry, the wrong board with here in 3rd, looking back in the battle for 4th. Jackson Sims on the top, Elliott Henderson on the bottom. Of course, Henderson coming into this race with a lot of momentum. Granted, we had that off week for Memorial Day weekend, but last driver to go to victory lane, picked up his first win on the season, and is a playoff contender, so that shot right up to the top of the playoff leaderboard.
I'm also noticing no one's really trying that high. I'm a little bit disagreeing with that because if I'm going to try out something for later in the race, I'd rather try it out in my opening run just to see if it would work earlier on than, hey, the first time I tried it was over the closing laps of the race.
Henry on the outside of Jared Darling, trying to swing around and get the 2nd spot and make it work there. Use the middle groove, and that's the other thing here as well. Not only can you run right up against the wall, but you see a lot of drivers that are right down in that white line, and also utilizing the 2.5 grooves in the middle as well. Lots of space to be able to run. A lot of comfort areas for drivers to be able to get that clean air to the nose through the corners.
Yeah, and it's really all about, you want the draft down the straightaways, but trying when you're in the corners to want a little bit of clean air, just seeing if I can get a little bit of air to that front of the car, help push it down, make it turn.
Got about, 6, I think, playoff contenders? Yeah, up here inside of the top 10. There are a couple of drivers that are running further back. One of them has lost 4 spots since the drop of the green flag, and that is Michael Sensi in the 92. Started 12th, currently running in 6th.
Oh, wrecking in the back. Gosh. Lawson.
A couple of cars involved. There was debris littered all over turns 3 and 4. I believe that 2nd truck involved might have possibly been the...
No caution, though.
No yellow.
There's a lot of debris on the track.
It really is. There was another truck that was up and into the outside wall. Might have been Tyrell Baker. I couldn't tell for absolute certain. But to your point, no caution coming out, so let's see if we can quickly jump back, see what exactly happens. The 24 is on pit road, going to fall at least a lap down, probably more. Starting this race from the outside of the front row. Here's a look at it. Yeah, Tyrell Baker was the other one involved. And,
yeah, it looks like the TCB just came down the ditch and just hooked, and when TCB came down, Ashton pushed up a little bit in the corner, and they met. And man, the whole front of that car got ripped off.
And both of the Durrs were involved. The 2 of Matt Durr had the initial hit in the 2 truck, and then the 98 came in the latter half of the field, Robin Durr, and got a hit as well. So 4 trucks involved in that incident. Matt Durr is on pit road now to get his damage repaired. I think it was the front end of his truck that was laying in the middle of 3 and 4. And Ashton Lawson is still on pit road, currently 3 laps down, and going to lose a lot more as battle is on for 2nd. That's where we got Elliott Henderson and Zach Henry is taking place, a 2.5 seconds behind Nathan Jump. We've so far had one non-playoff driver and one playoff driver win here during the playoff segment of the season, and Nathan Jump trying to make it 2 for 3 for the non-playoff guys.
Just looking here, and one guy that I really kind of see on the move at the moment has to be R.J. Williams. He kind of took advantage a little bit of that Ashton Lawson incident, but he's slowly been working up the field. I think he can crack the top 15 here in probably the next 10 laps.
Right now running in the 17th position is R.J. Williams.
Oh! Hunter Manolinas got in the wall. Looks like he got a little bit of assistance from the 25 of Matt Daniels.
Still keeping it going there, but see if we can get a look at the right side of that number 9.
That
Easy scrape there for sure. Yep.
It's not going to affect it aerodynamically. It's just going to feel a little bit different to him. And looking at the 25, I mean, he's got a little bit of right side scrape, but it's not actually going to affect the car at all. But obviously, that's not what you want early on to a race. And same thing where if you're trying to just keep the nose clean and you're not in the playoffs, I mean, it's just one of those things of you don't want it to happen.
Matt Daniels got a donut right there behind the right side, number 25 on the door. Spencer Owens just making a pass on him before Ashton Lawson had his issue. Spencer Owens was the last of the playoff contenders on the leaderboard. Spencer coming into this race in 6th, actually tied for 6th with Hunter Brittle in the playoffs. Had a strong outing at Talladega. That Bama Buggies number 23 was up inside the top 5 for, what, about 2/3 of that race.
Pretty much. I mean, he was a threat to be reckoned with. And it looks like now Durr is going to, actually, it looks like he's running a little bit slow. Weird. He just came off a pit road, and he's still running on the pit road.
Running down that access road. Oh, look at that right front. That right front is killed. That right front tire is facing inward. That suspension is absolutely
it doesn't look
totaled on that right front.
Yeah, it doesn't look completely broken yet, but I bet it's not comfortable with speed.
He's back down pit road, gonna get a little bit more TLC for that machine, and one driver who is not gonna make it back on the track that just pushed his truck behind the wall moments ago. That is Ashton Lawson. We saw what a plummet Shane Neiswanger took in the points with the low finishing DNF a couple of weeks ago at Talladega. Ashton Lawson came into this race 5th in points. He'd actually lost positions last time out at Talladega. He's going to lose a lot more after Homestead tonight.
Yeah, it's the thing of it sucks, and you really need to kind of minimize those mistakes. But hey, all it does is put you in that line going forward of I can't take it easy at the next track. And right now, time's ticking.
Going back to that incident that took place between Ashton Lawson and Tyro Baker, that's one of the tough things when it's a track like Homestead where you've got all those options of different lanes. You always have that kind of gray area, and this happens in a lot of the mile and a halves as well, not just Homestead, where one driver, they have a different approach on entry through the center and exit. Another driver, entirely different line that they run. Almost invariably, they always seem to want that one final piece of real estate, and that's where the contact takes place. That's what exactly happened with the 24 and the 025.
I mean, you got to look at it. Yeah, I'm running great through this line, but if I could just get a little bit lower, I could just carry a little bit more speed. I could have a better exit. And unfortunately, that little bit of space is always covered by that other guy.
Will Barbagelata, a couple of weeks ago, back at the first playoff race, almost saw him go to victory lane at the Milwaukee Mile, was running in the 2nd position for most of that race, and was having a good battle at the time with the eventual winner, Zachary Henry. Went with a tire strategy call, it didn't work out in his favor in the closing stages, but right now, he is up here inside of the top 10, 6th position for him. And Jackson Sims, who started on pole, he's drifted back a bit, but seems to be holding court in the 7th spot.
Yeah, and Sims, I kind of expected a little bit of this fall off just because look at the time, look at the sky around us. The sun is setting, the track's going to start changing up a little bit. And hey, these guys have been practicing in the daylight. Obviously, when we get over to nighttime, the track's going to change. You're going to have to readjust your driving style. I don't think Sims has done it just yet. But hey, this is a perfect learning opportunity where he's got some space and cautions out. Maybe R.J. Williams.
You are correct. It is the 44 around on the top side of the entrance to turn number 3. Doesn't look like anybody else made contact with him. Whoa, that's close! Oh, he's going to get a hit there from Robin Durr.
I understand him pulling down on the track, but man, he waited a little bit. He waited a really bad moment to do so.
have a little bit more damage. I believe it's going to be more than likely on the right rear. He was running at the time in the 16th position. Go back and take a look. I would assume there was some prior contact that got him
Ooh,
spun around. Looks like the 22 of Michael
yeah,
Barbagelata is in the vicinity.
they were 3 wide. And, huh. I don't know if RJ realized that they were 3 wide, came up on Barbagelata, and just was not ready for it.
That's Tyler McClellan in the 95 that was up on the outside of that 3 wide situation. And, oh, there's the hit right there for Robin Durr, with the 44 of RJ Williams coming back down the racetrack with oncoming trucks. Take another angle of it here. Just down the back straightaway. Pretty good hit there with the front end.
Real contact really comes after the fact when he ends up pulling down.
Yeah.
He misses one car barely, but pretty much. I don't think anyone was really expecting him to pull down. And that's when Robin Durr just kind of out in.
And Robin Durr, of course, was involved in the previous incident that didn't bring out a caution. He made contact with Ashton Lawson back in the midway portion of this run, had not come to pit road, so more damage sustained on the number 98. As we've got pit road open, looks like just about everybody has come down pit lane with the exception of Lewis Woodall and Spencer Owens, and now they're going to dive onto pit lane. That should turn the lead over, it looks like, to the 4 of Jared Darling. I believe, yeah, I think there was a 2-tire call on that 4 truck.
Now, I do have to say, even though there is some trucks that are damaged, we can kind of look at it here and say, hey, with this new damage model, what it allows them to do is they can effectively repair these trucks back to when they were, straight out of the race shop. They're not really subject to, hey, we fixed the truck, but it's not 100%. And that's been the perk of the new damage model, where yes, it's a little bit more fragile. You hit the wall, there's a lot more parts that fly off the truck. But the good news is, in the pits, it may take a little bit longer, but they can fix the truck back to how it was. Minus any engine damage and such.
It looks like this is how they're going to line up when we get ready to go back green. Playoff contenders Jared Darling and Elliot Henderson going to be the front row. Then you got Nathan Jump, who has led just about every lap so far after he got the race lead away from pole sitter Jackson Sims. Zach Henry going to line up in 4th. Will Barbagelata 5th. Then playoff contender Hunter Brittle. He's been kind of quiet here in the early going, but been mid-pack of the top 10 most of that first run. He's going to restart 6th. Jackson Sims in 7th. Dyro Baker in that 025. We saw him get up into the wall, but apparently that hasn't affected him. And how about this call? Ooh, went with the 2-tire strategy. Got the track position, but Jared Darling is coming back down pit road.
I don't know if I agree with that.
I don't
obviously,
either.
Obviously, he can learn what his tires are when he ended up stopping. Maybe he just really didn't like the wear on that one set of tires that he had. No. He just passed through pit road. He didn't even stop. I guess he just wanted to go to the back.
Okay. Interesting.
That's an odd strategy, but I don't know.
Maybe just not comfortable on those 2 tires at the front, wants to ride at the back and see what it feels like in case he wants to apply that strategy later on in the race if we get a late race yellow. I don't know, but that's a ton of track position he lost, though.
I mean, listen, it's easy to say it up here when we're just sitting here. He can feel the truck. He has an idea of what the racing's like. If he feels it is the best to drop all the way to the back, then so be it. I mean, if that helps you stay on track,
I think he was 4th when the caution came out. He will restart now back in 25th with what appears to be a voluntary EOL. When green flag comes back out, we'll have 28 drivers on the lead. Lap of 30 still in this race. RJ Williams lost 2 laps with his extended stay on pit road. Matt Durr back on pit road again. I think he's just trying to log laps on the access road. He's 11 laps down. His green flag in the air. Elliot Henderson chose the top line, gets a great jump, and he's going to have about 2 truck lengths or so over Nathan Jump going into 1.
And we'll find restarts really vital here, but look at Barba Gelada on the outside. Almost is making a long-till exit and just ends up running out of steam.
Of course, with these restarts as well, everybody all clumped up together to try and make the most of it, pick up as many positions as possible until things start getting spread out. You brought up the word tires. I was observing just before that caution came out, when we were about 20 laps into that run, these drivers were running about 1.2 seconds slower than they had in the first couple laps of this race. So there is definite tire fall off.
And that's equally concerning as a CTCB wander back at the top of the track. I'm wondering, like I said, there's a lot of grip out there.
With Baker, Jackson Sims for 6. Now going to try to jump to the outside of Runner, but not going to get nearly as high this time. 3 and 4 running that middle behind Barba Gelada. So a little bit of play with the wheel there. Moves off of the exit of turn number 4.
Yeah, it's not going to feel great. I'm going to tell you this straight out. It is one of the sketchiest moves driving on the track, and that's where you get the most grip from. Look at how close it's running to the wall. And what you're doing is you're really trying to back in on that right side. What it's helping you do is just keep turning to the corner. So really, think of it almost like when you're closing the shooting or syringe. All the air has to go somewhere, and the air is just keeping you backing the car off the wall. It makes you extremely fast on exit, but it comes up fast.
See if he doesn't get up here. 1 and 2. Watch that tape on the center of the wheel. Watch this left grab. That thing is anything but steady up there.
And go on, you have to keep adjusting because that's what runs it on that ragged edge. And look at the running on the July. That's what I'm talking about. You can get such a run up there, but it's blaming the
Got a huge run, barely cleared across the back bumper, and Barba Gelada is going to take the 4th position. I saw maybe, oh yeah, he's wicked loose on the bottom. I saw a little tire spill coming off that left rear.
I'm going to tell you, it does not feel good, but it is the fastest car.
Now, we started this race at twilight. Lights have come on here at the facility of Homestead Miami Speedway. The track should be starting to cool down the longer we go. Does that help with the loose condition or make it worse?
See, I'm a little bit divided on that. It depends on how many times I put it up in the fence. That really would be my answer. But obviously, with new tires, it makes it feel a lot better. Look at the back end that just started to step out, and that's what makes me wonder with the cooler temperatures. Is it stepping out finally, or is it tire wear that's finally kicking in, making the back end step out?
Now, obviously, the drivers on the ground have got to be seeing what Tyrell Baker is doing.
I mean,
they're seeing the ground he's making up, but they're also seeing just how sketchy it is for him to try to keep that truck underneath him. So how anxious does that make the drivers to try and mimic that and try that outside line for themselves?
I mean, it's one of the things of, I don't think anyone's really thinking necessary because it's common knowledge that when you're running that top and usually in short bursts, it's great. But in that long run, that's when you really start to suffer. I'm wondering if the same thing. Oh, TCB finally got the fence, and it was just enough to let Zach Henry and Nathan jump by, but jump got held up.
Not the first time we've seen Baker up and into the wall. Matter of making sure that you get your truck off the wall quickly enough that you don't lose enough momentum, don't lose enough positions. He lost about 3 or 4 positions the first time he was in the wall in the first stint. This time he only lost about 1 or 2 positions and battling back on the outside of Nathan Jump. Just an update on a couple of drivers. Jared Darling, we saw him go with the 2-tire strategy and then pass down pit road at the 1 to green. He has not made up any ground since we went back under the green flag, still in the 26th position. So I don't know if he's just kind of in ride mode right now, or if indeed the 2-tire strat has been proved that it does not work if you're trying to make your way forward through the field.
I mean, I went back to LC laps and just been watching him, and it seems like he just fell off the pack. He just hasn't been having the same effect that other drivers have been having with it. So maybe it isn't. I'm a huge fan of that 2-tire call late in the race, but obviously if it's not panning out early in the race, I don't think when it gets a little bit later and a little bit darker, it's going to be beneficial. So maybe 4 tires over.
Little up here inside the top 5 now. 5th place for that Guinness Chevrolet Silverado.
Now,
another driver who really suffered from a bad performance at Talladega a couple of weeks ago. Dropped to 6th in the point standings, 34 points out. This was a driver that headed into that race in the points lead.
Now, what I want you to do is watch his 025 in like the next 10 laps. And what I'm thinking is going to happen is he's going to start dropping back through the field because he's burnt off those tires just a little bit too early. It could be wrong, but that's what I'm expecting here. Is that's the trade-off for using that high line, is that unfortunately you end up burning those tires a little bit more. He's doing a great job of holding up the front line, so he may be able to kind of stop a little bit of the bleeding, but hopefully, and I think what he's betting on too, he's betting on another quick caution where he can go and throw on some new tires and go again.
Going to try and make another pass. That is fourth on Nathan Jump. Talked about he being a number of drivers that did not have the luck they were looking for last week at Talladega. There is another one, Shane Nicewanger. New colors on that 49 here this week, and he is currently in the 7th position, trying to gain back a lot of the positions he lost. He was 4th in points going into that Talladega race. He comes into Homestead tonight, 9th in points, 40 points out of the points lead.
You know, I'm noticing some other drivers kind of experimenting with that top line, but I haven't seen anyone kind of take it to that same extent. And I think that's what really helped TC get that advantage, is he wasn't afraid to almost get on the wall, and that's where you get the maximum benefit. Everyone else is running about half a car width off the wall.
Hunter Brittle looks like he's kind of playing with that outside line. He's going to get into the back of Tyrell Baker, who has a tremendous save. Wow, that was nearly bad up inside of our top 5, and I think that was a case of Brittle wanted the outside line, was going to send it with a lot more speed, and Tyrell Baker was about a half groove blocking the lane that Hunter Brittle wanted.
Yeah, I think he thought TCB was going to go further down than he did, but no, he lifted off at his normal point, but he stayed up near the wall originally, and that's what just pretty much led to that disagreement. You see Nathan Jumps now on the charge.
Had a couple of really good saves here in the first 40 laps. Ashton Lawson, the early going of this race, very first lap, first corner, and then right there, Tyrell Baker. But you were talking about the tire wear for that 025 with running the high line. A little drift into the corner isn't going to make those tires any happier either.
No, and what's really going to do is going to make that back end a lot looser now. Obviously, what I'm thinking here is the car's going to end up pushing a little bit tight, and that's good and bad, where yeah, the car's pushing a little bit tight, but the front's going to push tight and the rear end's not going to stick, so you're going to be in for a great situation.
Elliot Henderson out in front here, trying to win back-to-back races, go 2 for 3 here in the playoffs. We've had a couple of drivers that have gone to victory lane multiple times this season, Will Barbagelata, Shane Nicewanger, Jared Darling, and Ashton Lawson, but none of them have won in back-to-back races. Elliot Henderson could be the first driver to do that here in Season 7, but there's Zach Henry, who was the last non-playoff winner a few weeks ago in the first playoff race at Milwaukee Mile, and you know that these non-playoff drivers, we've seen them, they've kind of had the race with nothing to lose mentality, so there's no way that Zach Henry's going to let Elliot Henderson get away with this thing really easily.
You know, I was looking at back-to-back races. I think Shane Nicewanger might want to argue with you there.
You're right.
One Daytona and Rockingham back-to-back.
You're right. You are correct. It's them old man eyes playing tricks on me again.
I got to get you those lenses.
Yep. Bifocals or trifocals? We'll determine that later on. Top threes. If they don't exist, we'll invent them. Top 3 were single file. Had a good battle going on there for 4th, but looks like Hunter Brittle's going to take the spot from Will Barbagelata. Tyrell Baker still trying that top line. A little bit too high, but he's going to be able to get it off the wall. Nice one was trying the inside against him for the 6th position. Now, one driver we do have to keep an eye on. I've been noticing this ever since we started this race. Has been kind of flickering in and out is Austin Moore. He's in the 9th position, but certainly don't want that connection problem to get any worse, because he's running really well in the point standings. Comes into this race 2nd of the playoff contenders, only 7 points behind Elliot Henderson. And last thing you want to do is lose positions, lose points with something out of your control. So hopefully it's just a minor blinkage that goes on here during the course of this race as he's up there inside the top 10.
Yeah, and I honestly haven't seen him been that strong this race, but like we saw in Milwaukee, he just kind of gets stronger later into the race. So I think he's using his hard drives, learning how it responds, and too shot.
Spot to Trent Curtis. Sensi now on the inside of the 92. Sensi had a good run at Talladega, jumped up to third in points as a result, 11 points out. It's really close really between Henderson, Moore, and Sensi. We've ended up having two playoff races now with two different playoff contenders leading the points coming in. Elliott Henderson right now trying to maintain his spot atop the point standings, but who knows? Depending on what happens here in these next 90 laps, circumstances on the racetrack or on pit road, we could end up having a third different driver at the top of the leaderboard. How about pit road? I mean, we're now into the longest run so far that we've had. Just about to the point this time at the first stint when that first yellow flag waved. Pit road, how difficult is it going to be to get onto? How soon do you maybe come to pit road now with that caution, possibly throwing a spanner into your strategy works? Because, again, we're seeing the tire fall off. These drivers 1.1, 1.2 seconds off the fastest laps that they've laid tonight.
So the good news is with pit road, we're not required to use the access road, so we're able to take a more aggressive approach. However, what you're going to find is that to get down on the pit road, it is a very shallow track, but that pit road entrance is actually about 35% of the size of that, so you're going to have to try and aim your truck and slow it down at the same time. Your biggest issue is really going to come from the pit stalls themselves, because all the confidence are just slightly and that's going to be on the exit. So if you're thinking about moving on tire fall, no tires, you're going to have a painful time on pit exit because you're not going to be able to handle as much as everyone else. And on new tires, you're going to have to be a little bit careful because you touch that grass, the truck's going to
Baker back on the top side again, and it doesn't look like it's working quite as well for him now as it was in the early going of this stint. He is going to get side by side with Shane Nicewanger, but didn't see him get nearly the momentum from the center of the corner off that time through 1 and 2 as he was able to get in the first 5-6 laps when we went back green. Sensi and Trent Curtis, they were duking it out for 9th. They have since dissipated that battle. Ooh, Baker going to get up into the wall again. And this time he's going to pay the price and lose a couple of spots. This time to Shane Nicewanger and Jackson Sims. Here comes Michael Sensi for a position as well. Tyrell Baker, he has run the highest up on the racetrack of anybody tonight. A couple of drivers have tested the waters up there, Hunter Brittle and Jackson Sims, but nobody has gotten as high as Tyrell Baker, and he's gotten into the wall a couple of times as well and has paid the price for it. But again, he is, as you'll see on the left side of your screen, he doesn't have the blue banner. He's not a playoff driver, so he's willing to run that risk and maybe has the bring home the trophy or bring home the steering wheel mentality, and of course as well, a little experimentation. Might see if we have a late race caution, a late race restart. He might be the only one who knows what his truck is able to do running that high on the racetrack. Credit to Elliott Henderson there. He had a challenge coming from Zach Henry, but has since been able to shake him off. Opens up about 0.6 of a second, and Henry is starting to lose ground to Nathan Jump. So it kind of looked visibly like Elliott Henderson might have been using up his stuff more than Zach Henry, but here on the long run, looks like maybe it's the exact opposite. The 12 might have been using up his stuff, trying to reel in the race leader.
I wonder if it could be Elliott's trying to kind of conserve his stuff a little bit, knowing that he doesn't have to push as hard, but I'm 50-50 on that one.
Closing in on 30 laps into this stint. A couple of drivers that have done a good job here. We've had these 2 long runs of being able to pick up positions. Might have gained a couple of spots on pit road under that only caution, but Tyler McClellan started the race from the 18th position. He's up 7 spots to 11th. Eric Kempf started 21st. He's up 8 spots to 13th. And how about Emilio Paredes, 66? He's in a hornet's nest back here, but he started outside the top 30 in the 31st position. That was dead last. 17 spots he has gained up into the 14th spot and continuing to make forward progress. Just got around Austin Moore in the 91.
Yeah, he seems to be taking almost a different approach on that high line than I've seen some other guys do. he isn't getting as close to it as TCB, but he's not staying as far away from it as I've seen other drivers, and it's kind of led to that nice blend of it's not raw speed, but it's not slowing his pace as the run goes on. Because I've seen that 025 almost dropped back into the race now. He's currently fighting for it. I really don't think that top line's viable in a long run.
Yeah, watching and seeing a couple of drivers that appear to be going the wrong way. Mentioned about Tyrell Baker. Also noticed that the 91 of Austin Moore, and he's on pit road actually. I was noticing he was falling out almost outside of the top 20. This might be the gauntlet thrown down to start the first round of green flag pit stops, and it's playoff contender Austin Moore that begins it. I think I just saw somebody else duck down to pit road. That was Nathan Jump in the 83.
Sims and Trent Curtis join him as well, and that's really good to see. Now, what really is going to make all the difference here is how aggressive are you willing to push this onto pit road? I am very iffy on that because you can push it a lot, but if you speed, hey, that's a long way back around that racetrack to go take a stop and go.
And there's a number of drivers right there. The 51 and the 6, they coming in pretty hot to the commitment line.
It looks like the top 4, top 5 are on the same strategy as you see Shane Nicewalker down now. One guy I do want to give a shout out to has to be Jeff Johnson. Even before the cycle of pit stops started, he actually was running good. And it's one of those things where we don't really get to highlight a lot of these guys later off in the race because usually truck's all banged up, but he's been doing a really good job keeping care of his equipment. And I'm seeing the whole horde of cars in front of him, and that's perfect. That's what I love to see as a driver.
Yeah, I think he was running about 13th, 14th place before these pit stops began, as saw Shane Nicewalker on pit road, Matt Daniels, Brent Kincott, Robin Durr, all on pit road that lap. And here comes some more. Tyrell Baker, Michael Sensi, Tyler McClellan, and Michael Barbagellata. How about that formation coming down pit road 2 by 2?
Yeah, it's kind of an iffy thing, and I'm seeing a lot of these guys on their exit the pit roads, they're kind of pushing it to the limit, getting as close to that grass as possible and not trying to spin the car. Don't think anyone's been brave enough to take 2 tires, but I don't expect anyone to take 2 tires at this point.
Here comes the leader, Elliot Henderson in, Hunter Brittle. Wow.
Look at how much time Brittle gained.
Wow.
I think he made pit road speed.
Michael Barbagellata right there with him as well. I'm sorry, make that Will Barbagellata in the 27. And that was close. That'll be interesting to see if he was able to get it woe down in time. Talking about Hunter Brittle, but it was about 5-6 car lengths that he just closed up there in a matter of 200 feet or so.
And you got to look at this. I mean, the greatest place where you can gain the most spots is on pit road. Really, just because if you're willing to push it more than another guy, look at how he leaves so close to Elliott. He basically just gained up all that time without having to actually go work for it.
Zach Henry is in. Jeff Johnson, whoa! Almost got the barrels there, a little wide coming into pit road, but he did make the commitment line. Looks like also James Shiflett in this time as Hunter Madalinas going to take the race lead for the time being. And look at this, here's the difference of fresh tires to old tires. The 025, the 92, the 1, they're all on fresh tires. Watch as they're swinging around the top side, ripping the top against these drivers on 35-lap old Goodyears.
And that's what I'm really saying. If you're on the older tires here, when you pit first, I would be trying to rip that top lane. I'd be trying anything to get as much time between me and the next guy as possible, because I know that my tire is going to end up wearing out a little bit faster than all the guys who came after me. So let me use that to my advantage. Let me try and get at least a little bit of a time advantage while I can. Oh, car in the fence. Looked like it was Brett Kincott.
Stay green as Spencer Owens inherits the lead after Zach Wilson, Eric Kemp, and Hunter Madalinas dove onto pit road. As things are looking right now, I believe Nathan Jump is going to, no pun intended, jump Elliot Henderson, and he'll be the one to have the race lead once everything cycles around. Scoring right now has him almost 3 seconds over the 37. That might have been the aggressiveness onto pit road being the difference maker.
I'm just watching this here. I think that really helped him get back in the race. And like I said, the big thing is, if you know you're on a good strategy, focus on it. Where if I can't beat them in raw pace, let me see if I can kind of beat them in strategy-wise.
Down the list here, checking to see. I believe everybody did make pit road speed. I do not see any penalties handed out, so kudos to every single one of the drivers getting those things slowed down, do pit road speed, and not having to spend extra time on pit road in danger of losing a lap with a pit road penalty. But Nathan Jump has about a 2.5 second lead now over Elliott Henderson after everything cycles around. About 8/9 of a second back to Hunter Brittle in third. Zach Henry right now in fourth. And Will Barbagelata currently completes the top 5. Then you got Sims, Curtis, Nicewonger, Baker, and Sensi. That is the top 10. The biggest gainer on that round of pit stops, you talked about him getting into the wall, but Brent Kingcott up to the 11th spot and trying to break into the top 10.
Yeah, I've noticed that the wall hits haven't been doing as much time as they've done in the past. Where a lot of these guys have just been able to kind of set the car against it and it just hasn't hurt it.
Anything, they've only maybe lost a bit of momentum. And the times that they have gotten the wall, the field's been spread out enough that you only lose maybe one, a maximum of 2 positions on the track.
Yeah, it's pretty much it's a truck actually acting like a truck. I mean, it just kind of takes it and says, okay, and it just keeps going.
But we know now what the fuel window potentially is for these drivers. Most of them went about 35 laps, 30 to 35 laps on that run. Cycle was completed with about 75 laps to go. If 35 is the furthest they can go, my calculations has them about 5 laps short of making it on one more pit stop.
Maybe you could, but I'm going to also ask the question, should you?
Yeah.
Would you have a better advantage? Because just with the tire fall off, would you have a better advantage just taking that extra stop and being able to go harder from the beginning?
If you've got that extra stop potentially that you're going to have to make, do you maybe look at this final 70-lap stint and split it into thirds, maybe come to pit road in the next 25 to 30 laps or so? Or do you try and stretch it as far as you can with just the one stop and make that final pit stop within less than 10 to go? Maybe come down, top off, and take on right sides or something for track position? I mean, there's a lot of different strategies that could play out here if we run these final 70 laps under green.
Yeah, that's why I'm a little bit iffy on this, because I could see a lot of strategy playing out, but it's also kind of not factoring in the unknown of could another caution come out.
Right now, this is the best battling on the racetrack. Top 9 have got themselves pretty well spaced out. Michael Sensi, Brent Kingcock, Michael Barbagelata. That's 10th through 12th. And Tyler McClellan not that far back. It's the fight for the final spot inside of the top 10 as we have less than 70 laps to go here at the Homestead Miami Speedway. And want to remind everybody that next week the playoffs continue here for the Great Lake Truck Series as we're heading to North Wilkesboro, but not just any North Wilkesboro. We're going to the 1987 version of North Wilkesboro, so that should be interesting. We already saw the Milwaukee Mile. Some people would consider it a short track, some people not. I consider it a short track. We've already seen how a short track of sorts was able to play its part into the first starting point of the playoffs. Imagine what North Wilkes is going to be doing for these drivers next week.
I'm going to tell you, there's some drivers who are really hyped for North Wilkes, and there's some drivers that are kind of dreading it, and the guys who are dreading it are definitely those guys who are maybe in a good position and really can't afford something to happen that may take them out, because North Wilkes is one of those tracks where it is just unrelentless. I mean, the best put, it's a track where, yes, you could have no front end on your truck, and you'd still go fast.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but just with the limited knowledge I have of North Wilkesboro, I kind of feel like as well for the playoff drivers, if you get involved in an instant lose track position, you are going to have to move heaven and earth and maybe rely on strategy to get it back, because it's not going to be easy just based off raw speed alone to be able to fight your way back up to the front.
Yeah, and that point, it's really just how comfortable are you with using it? That's what we're going to start seeing sometimes.
Got some lap traffic here that has closed up the battle for third. Lewis Woodall and Robin Durr, right in the bookends, if you will, of this third place battle, with Hunter Brittle and Zach Henry, is taking place about a second and a half behind Elliot Henderson and nearly 2 seconds behind the race leader Nathan Jump. See if any aero comes into play here for the 10 truck running in the wake of the 13. Zach Henry can take advantage of it.
And I'm gonna see it this year. I like what Hunter
A number of drivers very aggressive with their approach to pit road as truck down the apron like that. Matt Durr continuing to just cycle around the track.
He's been limping around, just going in and out of pit road. Not exactly sure why. Because
well, I mean, every position is a point. He's not in the playoffs, but you got Ashton Lawson, who's out of the race. He's already bypassed him, and if he's able to complete another 13 circuits, he will then pick up a spot on RJ Williams, who has gone back to the garage area. So it may not seem like much, but 29th does pay out more points than 31st.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Points.
I'm going to go back to the question I was going to ask there.
Oh! Looks like Brittle just got a little bit in the back of Henry.
Yeah, that was close.
I don't think he was happy with that pass.
That Henry clearing himself across the nose of the 10. See if Brittle can close back up, as they are starting to actually reel in the 83 of Nathan Jump. Did Nathan have an issue? Because he's actually lost the lead to Elliot Henderson now. I think something happened to the 83. I don't know what, but he lost a ton of momentum there all of a sudden.
I'm looking through and I don't really see any incident that happened to Nathan. He may have just ended up just losing the lead.
Not a whole lot in it in terms of the difference between his tires and Elliot Henderson's. Jump came to pit road 3 laps sooner than Henderson did, and 4 laps sooner than Zach Henry, so bit of a mystery there for the 83 that puts Henderson back out in front. Let's see if I can finally get the question I was going to ask about 10 laps ago out. We saw a number of drivers very aggressive on the entry to pit road. As mentioned, nobody got hit with a speeding penalty, so you were able to dodge the speeding police once. We're coming up with another pit stop, about another 18 laps or so for these drivers, if indeed the numbers we saw is the furthest they can go on a tank of fuel. How anxious would you be to maybe go just that little bit extra speed and see if it works out?
I think if you're in a risk of, hey, I'm back in the field, or hey, I'm not in that vital position, I would push it. But if I was in that position, maybe that Elliot Henderson's in, I wouldn't change my strategy at all. I would enter the same way I did last time. Just maybe be a little more conservative, because that's the one thing where, yes, you do have the potential to gain time. You do have the potential to gain spots out of that, but it's not worth getting that huge penalty.
Saw the 25 of Matt Daniels on pit road. Was wondering if that was scheduled or unscheduled. Didn't provide an answer, as he has retired from the race. He'll be credited at least for the
Wreck
moment.
on the front!
Jared Darling.
Oh my goodness.
Right
they're going
the
at full speed.
Yikes. Second caution of the evening. Playoff contender Jared Darling, who was just hanging on to the tail end of the lead lap, and subsequently went a lap down there with that spin. Leaders were encountering lap traffic, including Adam Zorn, Lewis Woodall, and it just put Rod Fastnow down a lap. I believe Fastnow is going to be the recipient of the free pass, but a little, maybe a complimentary change of shorts for the drivers up there at the front of the field.
I'm going to tell you, I don't, if I was coming down the track and I saw a car there, I don't know how composed that would be. Kind of has some bad flashbacks in that one.
Well, this caution now throws out any potential strategy these drivers would be able to make it the rest of the way. on one more pit stop. Granted, what lap they would choose to make that pit stop could still possibly be in question, but everybody going to come down pit road, take the advantage of putting on 4 fresh Goodyears as we take it back to, I'm assuming this might have been off of turn number 4 and onto the freight straightaway with 4 of Jared Darling.
Yeah, this is a really odd one, at least from my perspective, because I maybe
Alex
this
Fetter
is,
in the 30.
you know,
Wow.
in current NASCAR standards, they'll get you suspended for a week.
Well, although to be fair on that one, it almost looks like
Yeah.
the 4 cleared himself up rather than got right rear hooked.
I would need to see that data.
Yeah, there's that SMT.
But no, I don't really think it was any ill intent. It may have just been a misjudgment, and it really did look like Jared was doing a little bit, and maybe Alex down.
These were the 2 that were just about in the next maybe 15 laps or so of gonna go a lap down. Watch right here as the 4 is up against the wall. You're gonna see on the right side of the screen, there is the break green number 37 of Elliott Henderson coming into view. As a matter of fact, how about let's take a POV from the 37, see exactly what he saw as he entered into the vicinity of the front straightaway.
Listen, it's not a. It's. I bet it's going down. You got Roxy outside.
Yeah, trying to lap the 16.
Looking in the distance. Looking in the distance.
That 4 suddenly getting closer. Why is it getting closer so quickly?
Now I will say,
that's why.
in Darling's defense, he did mic up over the driver's chat and say, "Hey, wreck on the front straightaway." Didn't tell him where, but hey, that's a lot better than nothing.
It is. Unfortunately, there's a 2-truck incident there with Fetter and Darling, but another tough run, at least for the moment, for Jared Darling. Darling had a good run at Talladega, was able to move up a couple of spots in the standings to 8th, but that was coming off of the 2 spins I think he had off of turn 4 at Milwaukee Mile, and did not get the performance he was looking for there, so he's trapped a lap down here now as well at Homestead. Another driver that this was a race where kind of really needed to get it turned around. Granted, we ended up having 7 playoff races here that these drivers are able to work with, but we're almost halfway through them now.
Yeah, I'm seeing. I'm kind of seeing some differing strategies here, and I could see some guys that are really heavily banking on pit stops and kind of pit timings falling their way. I don't, and they can't make it to the end on this.
No. I mean, I don't even see how you'd be able to save enough. As of right now, we'd be going back green with 55 laps to go, I think, and yeah, that's way outside the window of what they're able to do. Well, let's see how aggressive they're going to be here on this restart, because potentially it could be the final restart of the night. Henderson again going to choose the top line. He did this back when he had the control of the first restart. Zach Henry will line up in second to his inside, then Brittle, Jump, Barbagelata, the top 5, green flag in the air, and another good launch for the 37. Oh, Brittle! Hard into the wall, off the nose of Nathan Jump, and that'll be the third caution of the evening.
I think there's going to be some different opinions on that one.
I just barely caught the tail end of that spin. Didn't see exactly how it started. They were 3 wide going into turn 1, but man, that's a pretty hard lick that Brittle took, and I think we might have also had the 63 of Eric Kempf involved there. See some damage on the right front of that machine.
It also looks like there is another incident that happened a little bit further back with Barbagelata and William Barbagelata and Hunter Madalinas.
See if we can figure all this out here. Oh yeah, I think actually to your point, I think that's the incident that Kemp was involved in.
So
So we'll
really
start first
the
with the Hunter Brittle incident, and ooh,
yeah, the big
this
thing that really kicked this off is here's where I'm getting a little bit iffy because I'm seeing that Brittle's moving down the track. Jump obviously is moving down the track trying to get the best line. I think it may have been Jump thought that Brittle was going to clear him faster than he did and just hooked him.
get another look here from the 83. I think a couple of drivers might have gotten bounced down into by the 83, maybe Trent Curtis in the 51. Let's see. Yep, right there. Shane Nicewanger might have gotten a slight piece with the right front. And then this is what happened further back. Madalinas, Will Barbagelata. I'm sorry, Michael Barbagelata. We'll get the Barbagelata straight at some point here. Oh, I think this was in reaction to the Hunter Brittle thing. It looked like Hunter Madalinas, he looked the middle 3 wide, and then the 22 checks up when the 10 comes up into his lane and then gets clipped in the left rear by the 9 of Madalinas.
Yeah, it was really just chain reaction at that point because there's nothing you can. I almost don't want to say there's nothing you could do, but there's really no good situation there.
I mean, you can get on the brakes and still get into the back of somebody.
I mean, I'm not even worried about getting on the brakes. I'm worried about getting run over from behind.
Yeah. There's where Kemp got involved with Michael Barbagelata coming down into his lane. Well, let's see if maybe an aerial view will give us an idea of the contact between the 10 and the 83 going into turn number 1.
Yeah, here's where I get really iffy because I noticed Brittle's going down the track and I don't see him coming up.
Does gap whack come into play? It was hard to tell from
100%.
that angle.
100%. I do see a little bit of space where technically they shouldn't have been able to hit. So,
End result, though, has a couple of drivers, Brittle and Nathan Jump, who had to hit pit road to repair damage, up in the top 5 pretty much the entirety of the night. Now they're going to be restarting all the way back outside of, well, the top 20 at least. Jump right now is being shown 21st, Hunter Brittle 22nd.
The big loser I'm seeing here has to be Hunter Brittle. I mean, again, he's chase driver. He's one of those guys that needs a good run. And yes, the new damage model can fix a lot of the damage on the truck, make it almost like new, but he hit it a ton with the front end, and I'm willing to bet that he's got some engine damage out of that.
Alex Fetter and Jared Darling, who we saw get involved in the second caution of the evening, they are both still on pit road trying to get damage repaired. They are 7 laps down each. Robin Durr, he's been on and off pit road. He is 2 laps down. I think he was... Actually, correction, no. Adam Zorn was the recipient of the free pass. So we will have, it looks like, 24 drivers on the lead lap when we go back green. 29 drivers currently still running as Elliot Henderson gets ready to get us back underway as they double up. A couple of drivers now jumping up further in the top 5 with what we just saw. Jackson Sims, the pole sitter, back up now to 3rd. Will Barbagelata into 4th. And Trent Kurtz, I believe this is the first appearance inside the top 5 for the HendrickCars.com number 51 Chevy Silverado tonight.
He's been hanging around a little bit. He finally got a chance to, with a few unfortunate events happening to the front runners prior, he's got the chance to drive up there. So I'm kind of curious on what he can do.
And we are pleased to welcome Great Lakes Truck Series driver Gavin Fitzgerald joining us up here in the booth. Gavin, we're a little bit more than halfway home. He's not a broadcaster
anymore.
Yeah, well.
I'm back.
He's back. Got 50 to go here. I mean, we've seen a little bit of everything. Front, middle, rear of the field, and these restarts, I think they're going to get crazier as we go.
Yeah, these restarts at Homestead, these bigger tracks always produce great restarts here. Everyone's trying to find the grip, find whichever lane wants to go forward. You always got to pick up the draft. I know with the new damage model, I saw a bit going on as we see, I think that's Matt Thurman in the wall in the back there. The draft apparently is a lot bigger in these cars. I know I saw some videos on Twitter. I haven't had much time to go through the damage model, but these big tracks always produce exciting restarts.
Sims going to clear Shane Nicewanger. They were 3 wide back here with Trent Curtis. Brent Kincott continuing to charge forward. He's now up into the 7th spot, and we got Tyrell Baker into the wall once again, like a broken record. How many times we said that here tonight? At least 3 that I can think of.
I mean, I got to give it to him. He's digging. I mean, he is going. But it kind of comes at risk versus reward of, yeah, it does gain you a lot of momentum. Tire, and it just kind of makes you a little bit worse for later in the run unless he's 100% planning to make that next pit stop.
Gavin, he's a non-playoff driver. He's got nothing to lose right now. He's just out there hunting for checkered flags. You know, obviously we've got playoff drivers up here that are noticing what he's doing. Would any of them venture up there and try that out, or is the risk just too great?
You know, I mean, it definitely depends on where you're sitting, probably looking points-wise. Like Elliot Henderson right now, for example, I believe the points lead is not going to be making any risks like that. He's going to run it safe, especially in the lead. But a guy like Jackson Sims, you know, had that incident at Milwaukee, had that incident last week. You know, guys like him, I could see Sims definitely moving up, trying to run the wall, gain as much points as he can, because he definitely needs them. So it all depends on what your mindset is. Are you in desperation mode, or are you in a mode where you just want to, you know, have a good point stay? That's all what really it depends on. And I know a lot of these guys have already have experience with the new damage model with our Winners Series. So a lot of these guys know to a degree what the new damage model can do, and I know you can definitely get away with tapping the wall a couple laps, especially if you're only brushing it. If you hit it pretty hard, obviously you're gonna have a bit of a rough time, but just like little wall taps like I see TCB doing are more than okay in this damage model. As we can see, he's almost doing it again as he's right up on that wall.
Up on that wall and gonna clear for the 4th position against Jackson Sims.
Yeah, and Jackson Sims is flying. They've been kind of battling back and forth the last few laps. Sims is, it looks like Trent Curtis may have gotten a little bump. Oh, we looks like the 95.
Some spots. Zach Wilson now up into the top 10, 54. First time he's jumped up into the top 10 tonight. Spencer Owens right there as well, the 23 top 10. One of the drivers that needs a good performance here tonight to continue to move up in the playoff standings. And it's interesting as I'm trying to crunch the numbers here again. I believe about 35 laps is the furthest they can go on a stint. The window is open in terms of strategy from when we went back green to the checkered flag. Make it if you come to pit road as soon as lap 100, but you can stretch it as far as about lap 115, maybe as far as lap 120. If it comes down to fuel versus tires, do you want to be that first truck on pit road, or would you want to be the last truck on pit road just in case a late race caution comes out?
How I've seen this race go, I would rather be the first guy on pit road taking those tires and seeing if I can just take them and run. And hopefully in that lead lap, so if a caution does come out, I can take advantage.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Matt here. I'd probably be in the same boat. You want to pit early, especially at a track like this. You do not want to be caught a lap down at a disadvantage. You want to always be as ahead as you can be. You know, I see maybe some of the guys farther back, maybe, you know, trying to stretch it out, hope for a caution, but the guys up front, Elliot Henderson, Zach Henry, I see them playing it pretty conservative on the pit strategy side. There's no reason to take risks right now.
It's interesting, talking about Henderson and Henry, you can see they were only separated by about maybe a truck length and a half. They came down pit road on that green flag cycle on different laps. Henderson came down a couple laps sooner than Zach Henry, and we saw Henderson cycled out to 2nd place, Zach Henry cycled out to 4th, and Henderson was actually able to then get around Nathan Jump for the race lead, so obviously the advantage went to truck 37. Does Henry learn from that and maybe try and catch the 37 out, come to pit road a little bit sooner and take advantage of fresher tires if we get this final pit stop under green?
Yeah, you definitely look. One thing I know I do personally is I kind of use everyone else as the guinea pig and see what are people doing that works. Is it stretching it out that's worth it? And it all also comes down to how you as a driver are able to save your tires. There are guys that are, you know, really good on the short run who will pit to that advantage, and guys that are really good on the long run. And then you guys have guys who are good at both. Elliott is one of those guys. You put him on a short run, he'll go quick. You put him on the long run, he'll go quick on the long run. I think if you're Elliott, you like the spot you're in control. Same with Zach. You got both guys, and don't forget about Will Barbagelata creeping back there, waiting for someone to make a mistake and waiting for his opportunity to pounce. I could see him trying to short pit these leaders and get out to an advantage.
Sorry, I'm watching this battle from 16th and 19th here. Really, 16th to 19th, and then looking up at that second pack, all the way from 11th to 10th to 13th. Here, just battling side by side. I saw Aaron getting to the back of the 66 of, why his name is eluding me. Yes. Sorry, every time I want to find his name, it just disappears. Fast.
Ooh, we got some bumping. Down this front straightaway, Zach Wilson pushing Tyler McClellan into turn number 1. McClellan's been a driver. You see him right there. I've been noticing he's been trying to rip the top side. Not quite as high as Tyrell Baker, but he has been venturing up there, and it's been working. He's now up into the 10th position here, bringing Hunter Madalinas along with him in the 11th spot.
Yeah, I know Tyler's definitely one of GLR's road racers. He loves. We love having him here, but he will be the first to admit that his specialty is in road. So guys like him are always good at finding the grip, especially in these corners. He'll know where to look to find grip, find the fastest way to get around. And so I'm not surprised to see him start digging the top before everybody else.
I know that really one of the big disconnects about guys who really come from that road racing background or maybe open wheel background, but whenever they hop into a stock car, it's just so much different where it's almost the etiquette. is the etiquette and the language is different. Obviously, in open wheel, I mean, if you have the position on a guy, you're most likely going to have to give that position, but in stock cars, that doesn't exist.
No, absolutely not. But it's kind of like, I view it as your way to adjust the mindset. In a way, I've always described road racing as you're racing the track with other cars on the track. But when you're racing in a stock car on an oval, you're racing against other people. So it's just stuff like that. You always got to be paying attention. And, I feel like Tyler's one of those guys that can transfer those skills really well between disciplines.
You say that, and it's funny because and sometimes when I've talked with road racers and then they take a stock car or a truck out on a road course, they have a complaint about the vehicle itself usually is the first thing they say is, the thing doesn't want to stop when I brake going into the corners.
Yeah, I mean, that's obvious. It just comes down to the car they're so used to driving, those GT3 LMP cars with the big brakes. I know, I hear that a lot with the truck, but I do not hear that at all with the next gen car. Especially compared to me, like I know me personally, I don't mind the truck on road courses. I've warmed up to it a lot over the last couple of years being in GLR, like Watkins Glen. We've ran Watkins Glen every year. So I've really warmed up to the idea of road courses. But the next gen car, I dislike how those things brake because they brake like a proper road car. And if you ask most road guys, they probably tend to agree with you. As Tyler McClellan and Brent Kincott and Hunter Madalinas are 3 wide back here for 10th.
They are. They've been mixing it up, having Kincott and McClellan for the last lap and a half or so. Now Madalinas entering into that vicinity. Oh, this is close coming out of 4.
He wants it. Hunter, known for his aggression in this league. And sometimes he's gotten him into a bit of trouble, but sometimes it's won him a lot of races. And shows it right there as he clears Tyler. He's going to hopefully try to get to the bottom of Brent here. Hopefully clear him up off the corners. See Tyler also stumble backwards to the 13 of Lewis Woodall, and Hunter will get it done on Brent as Brent looks for the crossover, but I don't see it happening.
Great comeback there for Lewis Woodall. I think pit road was his Achilles heel on that last green flag run. He fell a lap down. Caution came out. He was able to get the lucky dog, get back on the lead lap, and he's made the most of it. The truck's been fast. I think he just had a slow pit stop. He's about to break back into the top 10.
Let's see King Louie having a good run.
Yeah, I know a lot of the guys give Lewis a hard time, but when he's on it, he is on it. Like especially on these bigger tracks, it seems here. I know he's had a history of good runs here, I believe. And even stuff like Pocono, I know he's extremely good at Pocono. I'm just going to try and find, because I want to say that Lewis has a podium in the truck series. I'm going to see if I can find it.
You're getting really tight off of 4, though.
Yeah, Obviously, right now, we're speculating towards these drivers maybe making the final pit stop of the night under green flag conditions, but with these pockets of about 3 or 4 trucks have a blanket thrown over them, it's not outside the realm of the possibility that the caution could come out and the final pit stop could be made under yellow flag conditions. There's a lot of movement there out of the 95 of McClellan getting loose off of turn 2. Oh, King Cup pushes up almost into the 95.
Man, Jackson, Sims, and TCB they are just going at it lap after lap. I mean, pretty much one gets the advantage in one corner, one loses it in the next, and then they're side by side again in each corner.
That's what I love about Homestead. I'm disappointed I couldn't make this race in time to start it, but that's what I love about this track is it's just constant battling.
Oh!
And it all comes down to how you manage those tires. That was close for a second there.
I don't know if he thought he was going to make a bigger dive to that corner than he could, but definitely probably psyched Jackson out just a little bit. Ends up losing that bite off of turn 4.
And now brings Michael Sensi into the conversation. 3-way fight for the 4th position.
Sims has been doing exactly what he needs to, and he's in the wall. But Sims has been doing exactly what he needed to do. Is really, he's had a bad start to these playoffs. He needed a good run to get himself back in. This is that good run that hopefully sets the tone for the rest of the season.
It's interesting when you look at the first 3 playoff races here. We've had 2 or 3 drivers every week of the playoff contenders that have run into problems and not gotten the finishes they were looking for. You go back
Getting nice one to the pit road.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah, the fuel window is open to be able to make it the rest of the way. Let's see if this works out for driver 49. But back in the first race of the playoffs at Milwaukee, it was Jared Darling and Jackson Sims that had the poor performances. You then fast forward to Talladega. It was Shane Nicewanger and Hunter Brittle. And so far here tonight, it's Ashton Lawson and Hunter Brittle for the 2nd straight race that did not get the finishes that they're going to be looking for. It just kind of seems like no matter where you go, these tracks, they're targeting the drivers with the blue banners.
It's almost like a bullseye. I mean, I've always hated having the playoff banner on the car because it just makes me feel like, okay, everything that I do is immediately under a microscope, and it really is. I mean, you're looked upon as, hey, you're one of the best drivers this season, you're expected to perform, and when you don't have things fall your way, or maybe you're kind of struggling, it makes it, at least in my opinion, it makes it feel 2 times tougher to come to those races and really show out.
All right, so it was 30 laps to go when we saw Shane Nicewanger hit pit road. Brent Kincott and Eric Kempf also came down pit road on the same lap. Adam Zorn now in, and here comes the 6 of Jackson Sims onto pit lane.
And Sims, I think this is a really good break for him. Realistically, I think what really would have helped if, as soon as he plowed it into the fence, if he just would have pulled it off and pit that lap to minimize the loss and maybe use it as something to bounce forward. But he'll still get a really good finish out of this. Everything plays out.
Oh, Sims missed his box.
No.
Oh, no. And here's the thing also that you run a risk with if you are coming to pit road as soon as some of these drivers are, especially the playoff contenders. If a caution comes out, you're certainly going to lose a lap here. You may be able to get a wave around, but that's a lot of track position that you've ended up losing. So these drivers that are coming to pit road early, they need this thing to stay green. You saw Baker was in, McClellan, Michael Barbagellata in this lap.
Jackson Sims about lost it out of pit road.
I feel like
goodness.
a lot of guys have come down pit road, and a lot of people are spread out right now. Like, I'm cycling through the field, and really the only battle I see was not even a battle because Lewis just pitted.
Whoa!
Goodness, Hunter Matalinas didn't get it slowed down.
Almost got into Michael Sensi there at pit road entry.
He made speed.
Did he?
Yeah, he made speed.
And I also noticed that Will Barbagellata closed up the gap a ton there, and I think he might have gotten it woed down in time, but closed up about 5-6 truck lengths between himself and Elliott Henderson when they dove for pit lane.
Now, let me ask you this. I'm kind of looking at everyone's box times here, and I'm getting a little bit of a bounce back and forth. I don't know if anyone's brave enough to take 2. I mean,
No, I don't. With how long, you've still got close to over, like roughly 25 laps, I'll say. I would be very surprised to see people take 2 tires. This isn't, if it was a green-white checkered, I could definitely see it, but not with this. Not with this long left. I feel like the advantage, I know I personally tried it at Phoenix earlier in the season, taking 2 tires on, I'll say, a longer run, and it did not work out as you think it would. I fell like a rock.
Would there have been like a point in this race if the final pit stop had taken place where you would have tried the two-tire strategy, like maybe 10 to go or something?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, if we had a yellow with, I'd say, you know, within 10 to go, yeah, I definitely would try it and pray that just cautions breed cautions. But one thing you got to remember, too, is that, as we see, I think Shane Neiswanger is going to inherit the lead here.
Oh my
He very
goodness!
well might.
TCB and Barbachelata almost met. That's it. They are just dicing through traffic. Same thing with Shane Neiswanger.
Actually, I think it is going to be Elliot Henderson is going to be back out front. He is currently a second and a half ahead of Neiswanger. So this is an ongoing battle for what's eventually going to be second between Neiswanger, Barbachelata, Baker, and Kingcott.
You see Barb down to the inside here. He's going to get by Shane. Oh, he's going to tap on the apron and bobble.
Oh!
Shane's also going to lose it, and here comes TCB on the top side with a big run to the inside. He might get them both here, or he's at least going to have a foot on Barb going into the corner.
My goodness, he looks so loose off of that corner. One of these times he's going to hook it.
And pushes up there on the inside of Shane Neiswanger. It's again the battle for second place right now. Eventually, once things cycle out, we're still waiting on Spencer Owens, Trent Curtis, Nathan Jump to come to pit road. 36 laps so far for Trent Curtis, so that's
Spencer Owens
furthest anybody's gone.
Yeah, Spencer just hit pit road. I can almost guarantee you that the call from that was definitely to stay out and get that point for a lap lead. You know, Spencer, one of the playoff guys, every point matters. I know he was definitely marred a little farther back in traffic, so he probably just thought, you know what, I'll stay out, take the lap lead, take the tire advantage, and just see what he can make out of it.
Like we had another driver dive onto pit road. That was the lap truck of Robin Durr. We're still waiting on now race leader Trent Curtis to hit pit road along with Nathan Jump. Here comes the 51. 83 is going to stay out an extra lap here.
Yeah, you know, I see a lot of the, you know, these playoff guys, or these non-playoff guys, sorry, like I said, you know, going for those, you know, definitely more farther out strategies. I know Jump's probably going to run this out and wait for a caution. He's good on these long runs. He's got speed. Obviously, he was up front when I first got in here.
Oh, I'm so sorry, but just seeing Sims and Kingcott just really push Henry towards that wall, I was kind of iffy if he's going to take it or not.
Bunch of Tundras right there, duking it out for what eventually will be a battle for 5th place.
You know, as Jackson obviously trying to get as many points as he can here, like we said earlier, he's got to recover from those rough couple races that he started off the playoffs with.
Checking, and it looks like again everybody that came to pit road got down to pit road speed, no penalties. Nathan Jump on pit road, and Henderson goes back to the point, looking for his second victory on the season, second straight victory here, and to extend his points lead in the playoffs heading into next week's race at North Wilkesboro. But keep an eye left side of your screen at that ticker. That interval between Henderson and Barbachelata, it's closing pretty quick.
Yeah, Barb always seems to have speed when he needs it the most. That's the one thing is, if I were to attribute him to one racer, it would be Kevin Harvick. Barb will close in on you like you have no idea. You could have a tire advantage on him. You could have any advantage you want, but Barb will find a way to close that gap. He's one of those guys you will always have to earn it from him.
Tyrell Baker right there in 3rd place too. He is turning some of the fastest laps on the track along with Zach Henry. So it may not just be a 2-horse race. We could have 3, maybe 4 drivers in the conversation for this win with 18 still to go. Still a ways till we get that checkered flag.
One driver, but I know we've mentioned him at various points of the race for various things, but Hunter Madalinas finally inside the top 10, worked his way up to 8. He is up 19 positions from the start of this race. I mean, that is an amazing start.
A couple of drivers, Kingcott as well, both of them started outside the top 25.
Yeah, Madalinas obviously, you know, he's not in the playoffs, and the stats certainly don't reflect it, but he has had a very good season, you know. So definitely got hit with, I think it was 2 penalties for restart violations, which almost essentially ended his season. And I know he also missed, I think it was a race or 2, and I think I think it's universally agreed upon in this league that had he not gotten at one of those penalties, he would have been in the playoffs by a mile. But it is what it is, but he's certainly going out there and showing that he definitely deserved to be in the playoffs.
How About this battle right here for the 5th position. Jackson Sims trying to get back the points he lost at the Milwaukee Mile. Shane Nicewonger trying to get back the points he lost at Talladega. Both of them doing a nice job up here inside of the top 10. Looks like Sims is going to pull away, open up some daylight, and hold on to that final spot inside of the top 5. Third place battle starting to brew. Tyrell Baker falling back into the clutches of Zach Henry, our winner from Milwaukee.
Yeah, I think those tires have finally kind of bit the dust a little bit, and Henry's got a little bit fresher. I don't think TCB is going to be able to hold him off for long, but let's see.
Henry is running the fastest laps on the racetrack right now. About a tenth and a half faster than the top 2. Let's see if he's got enough time to be able to close up to Will Barbagelata and then eventually Elliott Henderson.
I think TCB could be a little... I don't know if he's going to get the run off the corner here like he thinks he is, but I think that battle's done and done. So early, it's now Barb as the last line of defense.
Yeah, we'll definitely see here. Zach always seems to be able, like Zach and Barb both have this attribute of just being able to run guys down. And you know, it's one of those things where you look, he's a second back, okay, you got time, and then laps go by and you run around. Now he's 8/10 behind, and then he's 6/10 behind, and just slowly but surely, no mistake driving, they just chip and chip and chip away at that lead, like lap after lap after lap.
Will Barbagelata was closing in. It was about 1.2 seconds about 7 laps ago. It got closed down to about 9/10 of a second. Now it's increased back almost again to 1.1 seconds. The number that is consistently decreasing is the gap back to the 12 truck of Zach Henry. But again, the question is 13 laps remaining and about 1.7 seconds to make up. Not sure if that's enough time because, as you alluded to, Matt, Barbagelata, he's kind of the last line of defense there for Elliott Henderson, and it might take a couple of laps for Henry to make that pass.
Yeah, I don't imagine Barb's going to kind of roll over and just let him pass, but looking at the ease he passed TCB with, I really think that he can get past Barb without very much opposition.
Elliott Henderson right now poised to have another good points day. I also noticed Michael Sensi up there in that 7th position was 11 points back, 3rd in points. He may actually leapfrog Austin Moore for 2nd in overall points heading into North Wilkesboro next week, with Moore currently mired down. I believe he's around the 19th position right now. Correction, 15th. Henry is there on Barbagelata. Drifted up to the top line here.
Barb's a good defender. I don't think he's going to let him just have his preferred line, but I imagine Barb's going to take the high line. No. He's running the exact line.
Same line.
Okay. That's
one thing I...
I didn't have a good ear.
I'm sitting here like, do I jump in? There's a lot of dead air right there.
Sorry. The one thing that people forget about these tracks is that the clean air does matter. A lot of the time you'll see, like Zach Henry here, for example, will probably watch and see what line Barb's going to take and goes, you know what? I'm going to take the opposite one. Maybe not that time he won't, but I know that's what I look for personally. Maybe not in the truck as much now. I'm not sure how the new damage model has affected the aero, if at all. I just know that I personally tend to like to not run in someone's dirty air, especially in a corner and especially at a track like Homestead where the top is like as strong as it is.
A little bit of a problem with Shane Nicewonger. Remember, he was one of the first ones onto pit road. Looks like those tires are wearing here in the closing stages, and he has dropped now back to the 10th position. So that's about 3 or 4 spots that he lost in the last 4 laps or so. Traffic here for Elliott Henderson to deal with. That's the 30 of Alex Fetter, going to yield the top line. Got another truck up ahead, I believe that might be the 98 of Robin Durr, who was involved in a couple of incidents in the early going of this race, still soldiering on 2 laps down in 24th. And that battle for 2nd is kind of opened up again. Zach Henry was able to get around Will Barbagelata, trying to mount a charge here, but I don't know, guys. 7 laps to go, 6.5 here down the back straightaway. Still about 1.7 seconds between those two. I think that, if anything, Zach Henry's going to need a caution if he's going to have a shot of taking this thing away from Henderson.
Yeah, he definitely would need a caution or like an incident with the 37, maybe get really stuck behind the lap car or something, but you know, as long as Elliott keeps his nose clean, keeps doing what he's doing, he's got a pretty solid shot to keep it unlocked here.
Spencer Owens trying to make a pass on Jackson Sims. A couple of playoff drivers here in the closing stages duking it out for the 7th position, and Owens is going to get it.
Yeah,
remember, we saw Nicewanger falling back, because Nicewanger was falling back in the old tires. Spencer Owens has got the freshest tires of the guys up here inside the top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Now he'll set his sights on Michael Senzi, and I definitely believe that Spencer will get to him and at least have a shot to get around him in these 5 laps, if not sooner.
Like a number of drivers paying the price for the early strategy call. Nicewanger, we mentioned, falling back. Looks like Brent Kingcott, Tyler McClellan. They're starting to lose some ground. Eric Kempf as well as Henderson. 2 seconds between himself and Zach Henry. Going to come around this time for 4 laps to go. And the last thing he wants to do now is come off turn number 4, look up at the flag stand and see a yellow flag in the flagman's hands. He wants this final stint here, these final 4 laps, to run clean and green.
I'm looking at these 2 lap cars ahead of Elliott, and that may pose a problem if they stayed side by side, but it looks like they single filed out.
3 wide here. Lap truck down the bottom. Madelinas and Tyrell Baker for the 4th position here. There's that battle you were talking about, Gavin. Closing up, Sensi versus Owens for 6th.
Yeah, that tire difference is insane. And now Sensi is also going to get stuck behind the lap truck here of Alex Fetter. Might not have gotten completely stuck behind him, but definitely didn't help him on corner exit here. As Spencer is probably, I imagine, going to look to whatever lane Sensi doesn't go to. As there he goes, you see Spencer's just going to charge around the outside, and Sensi is just completely defenseless. He's got nothing. As Spencer here's going to back up the corner, unless Sensi can clear him.
Oh, he can't clear him. He can't.
Oh, he can't. Spencer's going to get the run down the back here. He's going to take that momentum into 3 and 4, and he is off.
See, a lot of drivers run the top line through 1 and 2, not really up in 3 and 4. Owens going to try and get back to the throttle. He might be able to clear him down the front stretch. Nope, going to side draft, does the 92, pull him right back. They're going to be side by side again going into turn number 1 as Elliott Henderson, 2 laps to go. Looks like he was able to get around Adam Zorn. He's got Robin Durr ahead in the 98. Let's see which lane the 98 takes. He's going to stay up high for Henderson. Be able to take the bottom. And this is the flag Henderson wanted to see. Off turn 4, white flag in the air, 1 lap to go at Homestead.
No matter what happens now, Elliott knows he just has to not crash, as he even has pulled time on Zach and Barb. Pulled almost, I think it was about half a second gap since Zach got around him, as Spencer also got around Sensi there in those closing laps. And you know, while we're at it, Spencer Owens here is going to have a run on TCB, looking to gain some extra positions as Elliott Henderson enters 3 and 4.
Entered into the playoffs through consistency, got his first win a couple of weeks ago at Talladega.
Oh, he hits them.
Now a back-to-back winner here in Season 7 of the Great Lake Truck Series. Elliott Henderson wins tonight at Homestead.
Owens trying to get past TCB. Gave him a shot in the corner, just couldn't get him to move.
Nope. TCB held his ground there. That's 1 point, you know, especially for, you know, the playoffs. 1 point could be the difference between, you know, moving on and, or I guess not moving on, but having a shot at the end of the year and not.
Owens was 6th in points coming into tonight. Sensi 3rd in points. Sims 10th in points. So despite the fact that not getting that position for Owens, big points payouts for all 3 of those drivers, but Elliott Henderson making it tough on everybody because he gets max points 2 weeks ago, max points here tonight. Gonna grow that points lead going into North Wilkesboro next week as Henderson joins the ranks of Lawson, Darling, Nicewanger, and Will Barbagelata as a multi-time winner here in Season 7 of the Great Lake Truck Series.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Elliott walked into the playoffs oozing with confidence, and obviously it's showing. The work he's put in is definitely coming out now. And he waited for the perfect time to get hot. Obviously, the regular season matters a lot. With I think it was the regular season champion got, I think it was 15 bonus points going into the playoffs. Could be wrong on that. So obviously the regular season did matter, but now if there's a time to get hot, it's definitely now, and Elliott's taken the chance and capitalized on it perfectly.
We know Talladega, a bit of a wild card race. He was able to win there. How important was it to get this win tonight with North Wilkesboro on the horizon? Could maybe the back-to-back wins have given him enough of a cushion where if he does suffer a problem in next week's race at North Wilkes, that it doesn't hurt nearly as bad as we've seen other drivers plummet through the points with DNFs?
I
Oh,
mean,
100%.
absolutely. Especially with how North Wilkesboro is one of those tracks where you just never know. And I know officials went there a couple weeks ago, and obviously that's not really an equivalent to league racing. But one thing's for sure is if it plays anything out next week, if it plays out anything like it did during the week it was there in officials, then we are in for quite the ride next week because it is, I think, probably the most unpredictable track in these playoffs.
Zach Henry close to picking up his second win on the season, but he fell off there near the closing stages. Obviously was battling with Will Barbagelata with about 15 to go. But gets a great runner-up finish. Barbagelata, consistency continues for the 27. He gets third. Madalinas, I think, had that charge in the closing stages. He gets up to fourth. Baker hangs on for fifth, despite knocking down the outside wall a time or two this evening. Spencer Owens, great run there. The strategy call worked out for him, staying out as long as he did for that final pit stop. Brings home in sixth. Be interesting to see where he cycles out once the points are updated. Michael Sensi, Jackson Sims, couple of other playoff contenders right behind him. We documented Sims needed this run here tonight as well. Lewis Woodall and Zach Wilson, 9th and 10th, a couple of drivers that jumped up there into the top 10 in the second half of this race. Good job by them. Kind of hung back there, waited for everything to play out first half of the race, and made the charges when it counted. I believe this is Wilson's first top 10 on the season. Lewis Woodall, I think this is his third. Yes, third top 10 on the season. So good runs for both of those drivers. But then we start making our way down through 11th on back, and a couple of drivers that needed good runs didn't quite get them. Niswonger 11th. That's decent, but especially with the DNF he had at Talladega, might have needed a top 10, if not a top 5, to combat the points lost. Austin Moore, second in points coming to this race, 12th here tonight. Now that actually I think is a good run for him because I saw at one point he was around 20th, 21st. We saw he was dealing with the connection problems, but the bad news is he's going to lose ground to Elliott Henderson.
My whole
Yeah,
thing is for someone like Shane Niswonger, I don't think it's completely fire alarm yet. I think there's still time to pull this back. If correct me if I'm wrong, the cutoff race is Michigan, where we still have a good 3 races before we get there. And hey, if he can keep up his result of just keeping the car clean and getting there to the end, he can easily make that top 4.
We don't have a top 4 at all, actually.
Oh.
It just runs straight into Atlanta, from my understanding.
Yeah.
So, obviously we've got North Wilkesboro, Kansas, Michigan, and Atlanta. And one thing about Michigan, talking about Shane especially, I know it was a very, very long time ago, but Shane has won in GLTS at Michigan before. So he has the speed there. It's just a matter on if he can, make it through the next couple rounds. We've got 4 races left. A lot can happen in 4 races.
I think we could kind of consider Michigan as a cutoff race in terms of having yourself points-wise within striking distance, maybe, of the championship. You could kind of consider it a cutoff race in that regard, with it being the penultimate race on the season. We look at some of the other playoff contenders where they finished here tonight, and some of them, it's almost kind of the same deal that we talked about at the conclusion of Milwaukee Mile, at the conclusion of Talladega. Just did not work out in their favor, and 3 of them down there outside of the top 25. Hunter Brittle, back-to-back races with DNFs. 26th for him. Matt Durr never really even got out of the gate, got involved in an early incident, was dealing with that right front suspension all race long. 27th for him. And Jared Darling down in 28th position. So no fire alarm for Niswonger, but what about these 3?
Sorry, my mic working?
It is now.
Ah, so sorry. Could you repeat that?
Yeah. So we got the drivers down here. Brittle, Darling. Obviously, Brittle, back-to-back DNFs. Jared Darling had the struggles back at the Milwaukee Mile. Are these drivers, you said it's not time to sound the alarm for Niswanger, but are these drivers that need to start sounding the alarm here? Because when we're halfway through next week's race at North Wilkesboro, we're halfway through the playoffs.
Yeah, realistically, for those guys, I would be really concerned because uh, having the bombshell that Gavin dropped on us, realistically, if you're going to make your march back now, this is where you need to make it. And Jackson Sims did a great job of taking that first step today of like, hey, we got a good finish here. It's a top 10. Hey, I can work off a top 10. And it's just carrying that momentum forward. He's going to be a guy who's going to have a little bit more tough of a time when we get to someplace like North Wilkes or when it comes to Michigan, where everyone is really going to be good at Michigan.
It was looking like it was going to be a good day potentially for Ashton Lawson. Started the race from the outside of the front row, but involved in what was the first caution of the day. Finishes out of the race in the 31st position. Came into this race fifth in points. Be interesting to see where he is situated when all is said and done here this evening at Homestead in preparation for North Wilkesboro next week. But now it's time to go down trackside and see if we can dial up a few of our podium finishers and their thoughts of what went down here tonight under the lights at the Homestead Miami Speedway. And let's see if we can kick things off with our third place finisher, Will Barbagelata. Hey, Will, it's Gavin, Matthew, and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you guys.
Well, we saw this race turn into a race of strategy in the closing stages. Definitely looked like tires were the deciding factor. We saw that you had closed up the gap there between yourself and Henderson for that race lead. Started to fall back there to the 12. Did you just use up your stuff too much there in the closing run?
Yeah, I tried to push. I mean, not overdo it, but push pretty hard those first 10 laps just to see if I could get to them. But I really thought that prior run before we pitted was the most important. I really thought having that clean air and track position was really what it was gonna come down to. So I think I was, I don't know, a second back of Elliott when I came in, and that's about what it ended up, a little
Oh,
more. But I don't know. I never really thought I had a chance at him just being out front with the clean air.
so I've got to ask, if you did get another caution and everyone was on the same tires, do you think you could have beat him?
I mean, I think yeah, I think it really would have been chaotic, and a couple people up there would have had a chance. I mean, it really depended how good of a start I got and how late the caution fell, because I really felt I hurt my tires by those last 10, 15 laps of the run. But I don't know how we were racing, how restarts were going. I felt like anything could have happened in a late race restart. So I wish I had the chance, but I mean, Elliott was just he was just so quick. So I don't know if I ever would have got to him.
All right, Barb, and I gotta ask, was there any difference in how the trucks drove or acted today? I know they made some tweaks to the multi-groove tracks and the new damage model. Was there anything like noticeably different out there? Or was it all roughly the same?
I mean, I was expecting it to, especially as the run went on, the groove to move up the racetrack. I thought the wall was going to be pretty quick, especially the middle up, but it was totally bottom dominant, which I did not expect. I didn't really feel anything different. I just thought it was going to race completely different, but I mean, it was pretty much one groove on the bottom. I mean, people were making the middle and the top work, but I felt like the fastest was down low the entire run.
Yeah, I felt like also watching overall, like long run, you wanted to be on the bottom, but if you wanted to make a pass, especially if you had fresh tires, I know we saw Spencer Owens making some moves, and he seemed to like the top, so I felt like it was one of those things that definitely depended on the state of your tires where you wanted to go.
Yeah, no, I saw some people make the top work. Personally, I couldn't. I had one lane on the bottom, and that's what I was running the entire race. I couldn't make anything else work, which again, it definitely surprised me a little bit, but I guess that's just how it went.
Well, consistently up inside the top five all night long. You bring it home with a solid third place performance here tonight at Homestead. Congratulations on the great run. Before we let you go, we're going to give you the opportunity to thank some sponsors and do some shout outs.
Yeah, I mean, I want to thank you guys for broadcasting these during the playoffs. Always fun to go back and watch them after. and the admins and everyone for putting this on. Definitely a good race tonight. Glad we got some green flag runs in.
Absolutely. Well, that is Will Barbagelata. Brings it home third place here tonight in the third playoff race of the season at Homestead Miami Speedway. Congratulations. It's going to be interesting to see how the drivers feel in their preparation for next week when we head to the 1987 version of North Wilkesboro. So best of luck there, and congrats on the great finish here this evening.
Yeah,
You
good run,
guys.
Barb.
Let's see if we can get a hold of our second place finisher here tonight, and that is Zach Henry. Hey, Zach, it's Gavin, Matthew, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, I do.
Well, we saw drivers kind of fall off near the closing stages of the race, and we saw drivers' times pick up. You were laying down some of the fastest lap times there in those final 10 laps. You had to deal with getting around the 27, but if you didn't have the traffic, could you have reeled in that 37 for your second win on the year?
If I didn't have to go through any traffic, I think so. I think the tire advantage would have been big enough for that. But I mean, dirty air in the truck at this track is just it just sucks. I mean, if we had a little bit more horsepower in these things, it wouldn't be all that big of a deal. But if you get within half a second of somebody that's in front of you, it just plows and you can't really do anything about it. So. Zach, to answer your question, yes. I think without the traffic, I probably could have ran Elliott down and at least tried to get around him for the win.
Now, we saw 2 rounds of green flag pit stops here tonight, and on both occasions, you and the 37 were almost nose to tail in very close proximity to each other, but both elected on both occasions to come down pit road on different laps. Was there a cat and mouse game going on there? Did tire strategy play anything into when you came into pit road as opposed to him?
So the first set of green flag stops we had, I this is probably the third time in the last few months that I've potentially lost a race off of this, but I decided to run it empty because typically, new tires are faster, and at a place like this that usually wears really, really bad, it's a big advantage. But it just, I mean, like I said, if you just get behind a few people, you lose the advantage that you have trying to get around them. The last time, that last set of green flag stops, though, I kind of planned on running it all the way empty, just because if we did get a caution, that would be a massive advantage, right? I mean, I could have restarted 10th, and if I've got 4 lap fresher tires and everybody in front of me, I would likely just drive through them, being that close to everybody. So I considered just running it empty, which would have been about 4 or 5 more laps, but everybody in the top 10 pit like a lap or 2 before me, so I kind of just had to make that decision there if I even wanted a shot at Elliott. So I wouldn't necessarily say it was a cat and mouse thing. You want to have the tire advantage, and I guess I would prefer to have that advantage and try to run people down rather than, fend people off that are running me down.
So, Zach, I gotta ask, did you? So you obviously felt like it was a lot easier to defend on the old tires than attack on the new ones, for example.
Yes. I think. Well, so if I only had to go through Elliott on newer tires, then I think I probably would have ran him down and been able to get around him. But because I had to go through 4 or 5 people, I mean all night long, even with some of the previous stops that we had, I was always running behind somebody. Even after that first round of green flag stops, Lewis Woodall came out of the pits like 3/10 in front of me, and I ran behind him that entire run. So I never had the opportunity to just run my own race at my own pace without anybody in front of me. Because of that, if you run behind somebody, for example, on some of those restarts when I would run, within 2 or 3/10 of Elliott for 15 to 20 laps, that just kills your right front. And these trucks just don't have enough horsepower to drive it off of the right rear. If I had that ability, I think it would have been a little bit different. And I think I would have been able to at least get beside him and try to make the pass. But it just, the closer you get, the worse the dirty air gets.
Yeah, I know we definitely talked about that. Drivers looking for the cleaner, the dirty air going into the corners, so definitely played a factor.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I genuinely think that I was probably a little bit quicker than Elliott, and I feel like that showed when I would, run right on his bumper for 15 to 20 laps and then only fall off a few tenths after that. I think the most time he put on me on a full run was like 7 tenths maybe. Um, and we were always pitting, or he would always pit when I was roughly half a second back from him. So it's not like I just fell off hard. I genuinely just think I never had the clean air to take advantage of it.
Well, nonetheless, a great run for you here tonight, up inside of the top two, if not the top five, the entirety of the evening. Things got really interesting to watch with you charging up to the front there in the closing stages. So, a great run performance for you here this evening. Obviously, no, you would have wanted the win, but got some more tracks coming up. Got North Wilkesboro coming up next week. We saw you at the Milwaukee Mile do really well. North Wilkesboro, another heavy braking zone type racetrack, so might see this 12 in victory lane there. But before we let you go, floor is yours for thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
I got to shout out my wife. I will not be racing next week because it's her birthday, so we're going to be celebrating her, for the next week or so. I know I've got some family watching, so shout out to all of them. Elliott for running a really good race. When he was charging hard in that very first run at the start of the race, I kind of thought that may be the win right there because he's crazy good here, and he's one of those guys that you can't just bank on making a mistake at any point. So I was hoping he'd fall off a little more than what he did, but kudos to him. He ran a really good race. He did everything perfect, about as good as you can. 2511. Got Jordan, Aiden, Matt Daniels was here tonight. Breyer had some personal stuff going on, so he wasn't able to make it. But it's always fun to run with those guys, and we're typically competitive when we are here, and it's fun to have a group of competitive guys that get a little frustrated sometimes when things don't go their way. I think I think that makes it a little more enjoyable. You guys for doing a great job on these broadcasts. I look forward to watching it. I felt like it was probably a really good race from my point of view, and there were 4 or 5 of us that were really close, even on those long runs. Unfortunately, Brittle and Nathan Jump kind of took each other out, I guess, on one of the restarts. I'm not entirely sure what happened, but it was a lot of fun having several of us just be really competitive and have really good long run pace up there at the front of the field. And then the GLR admins for letting me race. I've had a lot of fun in this league for the last couple of years, and I look forward to having a lot more of these really fun, good, clean races in the future.
A great run tonight for Zach Henry. He brings it home in the second position here at Homestead Miami Speedway. Congratulations on the great run, and best of luck when we see you in 2 weeks' time, obviously, as you said, at the Kansas Speedway.
All right, thank you. You have a good night.
And let's see if we can go down to victory lane. I'm noticing Elliott Henderson looks like he's in a conversation with his teammates. I don't know if we can drag him up mid-convo or not. We'll give him a little bit of a moment here as we'll be talking to him with his victory in just a few moments. But yeah, Matt brought up the question, Gavin, about some drivers heading into next week at North Wilkesboro. They might be looking forward to it. Other of them might be heading into that piece with the survive mentality. If you're a playoff driver, regardless of if you've done well in these first 3 races or you've had trouble in these first 3 races, I mean, how do you mentally prepare for something like North Wilkesboro?
I mean, you just kind of gotta go in it with the mentality of survive. Like we've seen these short tracks in this league. It's just not like a good 75% of the time, if you survive and survive with no damage, you're gonna get a top 10. But at the same time, you gotta be ready. You gotta be ready to go, and you gotta be ready to do what it takes to win. You can't be North Wilkesboro is not one of those tracks where you can just kind of hang around and sit. Like you've got to be ready to go. You got to be ready on the restarts. You got to be ready for anything that it can throw at you. Because even something like this is something that might get overlooked by a lot of guys is that pit road is very, very short. So something like you will see a lot of mishaps, maybe not accidents, but miscues on pit road. That pit road only has, I think, 20 stalls. You're going to be sharing a stall with somebody. So you got to, like, even stuff like that, you got to remember, oh, I'm sharing a stall with Brent. I'm sharing a stall with Spencer. I'm sharing a stall with Elliot. Like, you got to remember who your stallmate is, for lack of a better term, to make sure that you don't get caught out on pit road. And even something like, say you do get into an incident and you do fall back because of the damage, that pace car comes around pretty quick. You got to be on the ball to make sure you don't go a lap down. So North Wilkesboro is one of those tracks where there's a lot more to it than just don't crash. You got to always be on the ball, and especially with how competitive this league is and how competitive these playoff drivers are, and even the guys that aren't in the playoffs. Like, you've got a lot of fast guys: Zach Henry, Hunter Madalenas, Barbara Gelada, TCB. Like, you got a lot of these fast guys that aren't in the playoffs that are out there to win and only win. Doesn't matter to them if you're in the playoffs or not. Like, that's their sole purpose, is to win.
And you've got that wall that's separating the racetrack from pit road. Not a whole lot of maneuverability if there's a wreck. So, yeah, keep track of where you are going into a corner, but I think you got to have your eyes a corner ahead as well, just in case something's happening up there, and that way you're able to plan out an exit route. It looks like we now have our race winner, Elliot Henderson, ready, and let's see if we can talk with him now. Elliot, Gavin, Matt, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Man, you guys got a whole crew up here. What's going on?
Yeah, we got a party up here, and it looked like a party out there. Maybe not necessarily for the drivers, but double wide, 3 wide, all night long here under the lights at the Homestead Miami Speedway. You got that first win of the season a couple of weeks ago at Talladega. How important was it to get win number 2 here tonight as the points leader? Going to give yourself a nice little cushion heading into some pretty tough tracks in the future.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that we had a solid run here tonight. I felt really confident about Homestead and I think it's Kansas and then Michigan and Atlanta. And North Wilkesboro is the one kind of outlier. So I felt like, if we survived Talladega, which we did, and we just ran solidly tonight here, we'd be fine. I honestly expected to not come away with a win tonight. I expected Zach to be a lot stronger, but that clean air is just so crucial. So when we were on that first run, I knew if I can get out there and then beat jump on pit road and everything, that we'd be in the best spot possible. We just never really gave it up. So yeah, definitely didn't expect all this to happen tonight, but 2 wins in a row is perfect. And we're going to go into these next 4 or 5 races and just kind of keep our nose clean and let it fall where it's going to fall and hope that we can keep our teammates all in the top 3 here.
We ended up seeing a lot of drivers really push the edge on pit road entry during those couple of rounds of green flag pit stops. We had kind of questions up here of, did they get it woed down in time? Where was the edge of how far you could push it with coming onto pit road to make sure you didn't get that penalty, but at the same time gain the eventual track position once everything cycled around?
I never knew where that line was. I kept it well under that because I had the gap back to Zach and Barb, and even if I in my mind, if I didn't beat Zach, that's fine because I'm still the highest playoff driver. So really, I'm racing, like, I think it was Spencer that finished 6th. Like, I wasn't racing anybody in the top 5. So everything that I was doing was just stay under the radar, keep it clean. And I think that's what made it so much easier to just kind of maintain composure and relax, because I'm racing Zach on the track, but I'm not racing him in points. I could care less if I beat Zach or, where I end up, as long as I'm beating the other playoff guys. So as far as taking risks and everything, the only risk I took was trying to be right on Nathan Jump's bumper on the first pit stop to try to get him off of pit road, and we ended up doing that. So, and I think that was kind of the move for me that put me in the spot to be able to maintain and lead the race from there, because from there with the restarts and everything, it's hard for anyone to really do anything. And then you've got the clean air, and yeah, so basically that speeding on pit road, basically running 50-51 right on the edge on that first stop was kind of close enough. And then after that, it was just maintain the spot and make sure you're okay. And I don't know what Zach really did on the last stop, but he lost, I think, a little bit of extra ground, and I think that kind of hurt him. But at the end of the day, he needed to drive back up through those guys, and I hit at the point where I came out ahead of everybody anyway, so I didn't have to race anyone super hard. So it all just kind of worked out, and I wasn't really having to put myself in vulnerable positions.
All right, Elliot, so I got to ask, how do you go into North Wilkesboro next week? Are you going in it with just survive? You going in it looking for the best points day? Like, how do you, I know we just talked about it, me and Seth, how do you mentally attack that racetrack?
I mean, with how our season went in the regular season, we're out here trying to Tony Stewart this one. We'll go in and try to win, 5 or 6 races in these playoffs because that's, you want the dominant driver at the end of the season to have won the championship, and I don't want to come in here and just win 2 races and be, the same as everyone else and just kind of float into this. Like I'm here to win races and I'm here to compete. So I'm going to North Wilkesboro. I don't think I've won on a short track like that yet. Between, I know RJ and Cottle and those guys showed up really well last season. I think it was Hickory and. I think we've done 5 flags in this league too. So it'd be nice to check that off. I think the only short track I've won at is the Fairgrounds back in like season 2 or 3 when it first came out. So it'd be really cool to check off North Wilkesboro. So that's yeah, we're not going to lay down. We're not going into this, giving any points away. We're definitely going to go in here and try to win every race left. We feel good about Kansas, or Kansas, and we've been really fast at Michigan, even though it's a bit of a drafty track and questionable with tires, but. Atlanta and Kansas, we're going to go in and try to win, and North Wilkesboro is no different.
Well, strong on the restart, strong on pit road with execution, and strong in the closing stages to keep him all in his rearview mirror. Elliot Henderson picks up his 2nd win on the season, back-to-back victories here in the playoffs of the Great Lake Truck Series. Congratulations, Elliot. We'll let you get back to your celebrating, but first, we're handing the mic over to you for Victory Lane. Thank you, sponsors and shoutouts.
Yeah, appreciate everyone on E95 always showing up on a weekly basis. Tonight we actually had a full field with Madalena's coming back and Tyler McClellan filling the space on the 5th side. But always impressed with Cincy and Austin Moore and what these guys have done. I feel like we've taken kind of a lackadaisic, full fall apart type team with all the outfall of last season and turned into, I still feel we're the team to beat on a weekly basis, even though the team standings may not showcase that. So looking forward to just finishing the season out with them and seeing what next season holds. But thanks to everyone a part of this organization, Michael Levine included, and then everyone that works on the admin side, Eric, Shane, Brittle, Jeff, everyone that makes this series actually go off without a hitch, and then you guys are running the broadcast. Flatout Racing Network. Gonna get that tag in there, and I appreciate what you guys are able to do. Look forward to looking back at it, and glad you guys came back on for the chase to show some of our talents out here and get some guys on TV.
Elliot Henderson, now a multi-time winner here in Season 7 of the Great Lake Truck Series as he takes his 2nd checkered flag of the season here tonight at Homestead. Congratulations once again on the job well done, and best of luck next week as we head to North Wilkes.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
That's going to bring our coverage to a close here tonight at the Homestead Miami Speedway. And in preparation for that North Wilkesboro race next week, with that 2nd victory, we obviously knew the points gap was going to grow for Elliot Henderson. Now 23 points over new 2nd place driver Michael Cincy. Austin Moore drops to 3rd, 27 points out. Spencer Owens, the strategy call, moves him up to 4th in points. And Shane Neiswanger at 11th. That was enough to move him up 4 spots to 5th in the point standings. A couple of other drivers made some good strides in the points as well. Jackson Sims up from 10th to 6th in the point standings, 62 points out heading into next week. But we talked about it, Gavin. North Wilkesboro, kind of an anomaly for some drivers. Definitely a track position type track. You've got to get the positions when you can because later on in the race it's going to be a lot tougher to get them. You've got to execute on pit road. For a lot of these drivers now that have been able to kind of mount a bit of a comeback from the hardships they've had in the first 2 playoff races, how important is it going to be right out of the gate in terms of qualifying, in terms of being up there towards the front in the early stages of the race? Is there going to be enough time if you don't get a good qualifying effort and good starting track position to be able to work your way through the field by race end?
I definitely think qualifying is extremely important. Definitely, probably one of the more important qualifyings of this playoffs or chase or whatever we want to call it. But you are definitely able to work your way up through the field. 2-tire, I know we talked about it earlier in this broadcast, 2 tires won't work at a bigger track like Homestead, but at a track like North Wilkesboro, absolutely. So even if you have a bad qualifying and, say you start 15th and you claw your way back up to 10th under green, and then you pull a strategy call, you can easily get yourself up to the top 5, and then it's up to you to hold yourself in that position. So I definitely think there is a lot of room for, pit strategy, green flag runs. It's all gonna boil down to more than just qualifying, even though qualifying will be extremely important.
Well, in terms of race length, it will be our shortest race on the season, right plunk in the middle of the playoffs. You will not want to miss next week when these drivers continue the playoffs at North Wilkesboro Speedway. That'll be next Tuesday night. Green flag scheduled to fly at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is going to be must see. Tonight, the action was hot and heavy from the front all the way to the back of the field. Double wide, 3 wide, ripping the wall, hugging that white line, and Elliot Henderson gets it done at the Homestead Miami Speedway. Matthew Rodriguez had to step away for a few moments. I don't think he's returned, but want to thank
I'm
him
here.
for joining me in the booth. Oh, he is back. Hey, look at that. And then we appreciate Gavin jumping up here mid-race to join us for commentary as well. Gentlemen, it was a privilege to have you in the booth here tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. You know, I haven't done this in probably a couple seasons. Definitely enjoyed it, and thank you for having me back.
He's stuck with me. He can't get rid of me.
Thanks to everybody that tuned into our coverage here tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, be sure to tune in next Tuesday night when we bring you coverage of North Wilkesboro here, continuing on the playoffs for the Great Lake Truck Series presented by Patti Engineering. For Gavin Fitzgerald, Matthew Rodriguez, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night, folks. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your